The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom, and enjoy this bonus episode of Podcasting After Dark.
Hey everybody, co-host Corey here with a bonus mini review. This time I am talking about 1965's Planet of the Vampires by Mario Bava. Now, if you remember back last year, is August or September, whenever Zach and I do our documentary months, where we talk about different documentaries, I covered a movie called Memory, a documentary about the making of Alien, kind of sort of from the perspective of Dan O'Bannon and his wife and everything like that. He's obviously passed away, but his wife was interviewed and everything. Kind of like spurred me to kind of get in, like kind of realize how much of a hand Dan O'Bannon had in all the movies of my childhood and really explore that further. But if you remember in the discussion, we brought up Planet of the Vampires because it's cited in the documentary that it kind of has a little bit of influence on the movie Alien, especially the part where they find the space jockey and everything. And in this movie, in Planet of the Vampires, astronauts sort of crash land on an alien planet. They also find like sort of a dead race and other space explorers, and they find their bones of them and they're giants and everything. And there's sort of this direct line between Planet of the Vampires and Alien. Well, what kind of like really made me want to watch Planet of the Vampires was how colorful it was, how beautiful it looked to me, from 1965. And I don't have a huge experience with 60s movies. I'm definitely more versed in 70s horror and everything like that. But, it definitely shot to the top of my watch list when I was watching that documentary. Well, of course, it took me, almost 6 months to finally get around to watching it. But I picked up the Kino Blu-ray, which looks amazing, by the way. And I watched it last night. And guys and gals, it was an absolute hoot. I was completely enthralled the whole time I was watching it. First thing I noticed was how amazing the costume designs were. The characters in this movie, like I said, are, space explorers, and their space costumes look very similar to the X-Men costumes. The early X-Men movies from the early 2000s. Was it late 90s, early 2000s? My God. But where it's like that black leather, and then they have these like color trim to them, and they sort of added more color as the movies went along and everything. But man, these costumes, the costume designer for the X-Men movies had to have seen this because they look so similar. I even talked to our pal Dan Parker, the artist who draws all of our season posters and everything, and he agrees with me on this one. But yeah, so the costumes in this movie are sick. Absolutely fucking sick. They're black with like this yellow trim, and they have like these yellow space helmets. It is amazing. Like I said, the Kino Blu-ray is gorgeous. The colors absolutely pop on this. So costumes look amazing. The sets are, that 60s sci-fi. Man, I'm going to probably say cheesy in this, throughout the review, but just know that I'm saying that with nothing but reverence and love for these kind of movies. I also grew up watching War of the Worlds and everything like that. So, I know that there's probably a better term than cheesy. But it's nowadays it's kind of what it feels like, but I'm watching it and I'm just like, I love how colorful all the sets are. I love how sort of stark and empty the spaceship design is on the inside. I don't know. I'm sure there's a term, Art Deco, New Wave or something like that, but it has such a unique style to it. The ships look great. Their design looks amazing. The costumes are amazing. The women's hairstyles are amazing. Total like bouffant and everything. Remarkably, the guys look very like their hairstyles look very contemporary. It's guys' hairstyles don't change that much. I guess in the 70s the hair gets longer and everything, but here, just got your typical white guy hair, brushed to the side, parted down the side, and clean cropped and everything, and they look fine. But the women, straight out of 1965 with their hairstyles, and it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious. The planet itself, obviously it's all staged and stages and everything, sound stages, but it's lit so vibrantly. Vibrant greens, vibrant reds and pinks, and man, like I'm looking at it and I'm like, why do we have to live in a world where like so many movies come out now? I feel it's been all throughout the 2000s and late 90s, where everything has to be this desaturated or, very muted colors and everything like that. And like, why can't we make bright, colorful movies again? Everything is just so drab. And, it's one of the reasons I don't love like those early 2000, slasher movies like Halloween and stuff like that. They all look the same. They're all just so dark and muted and just, I don't know. I mean, some of them work, obviously, but it's just, man, can we just bring some color back to the world, please? It's just, there's no fucking color anymore. But yeah, this movie all the colors just, explode off the screen. Like I said, the Kino Blu-ray looks amazing. I wish there was a 4K, but honestly, I don't know if there needs to be. This looks so goddamn good. But, the reason, you're probably coming to this a lot, like nowadays at least, is because of this comparison to Alien, when the astronauts sort of discover another crashed ship and find these giant skeletons. You can totally get where the whole concept of the space jockey came from and everything. And of course, I'm talking about, pre-Prometheus. I'm not talking about engineers and bullshit like that. I'm talking about the space jockey. He'll always be the fucking space jockey to me. But you can see where that inspiration had to have came from. These giant bones, and they look really cool because you can tell that they're giant aliens, and they really put the time and the effort into crafting the bones, and they're not just like a little bit big. They're giants, and like that's pretty fucking cool. Like I love that. Also, the cool thing is, like an alien, finding these giant bones, finding this other alien life form that's long dead, isn't really the main, protagonist villains of the film. It easily could have been like, something to do with them, but it really wasn't. It was just to show that the real protagonists have been luring people to this planet for, eons. And the idea behind the movie, and you kind of find out late in the game, it being called Planet of the Vampires, is that this race of aliens are more like parasites. And it's more like Planet of the Zombies than it is Planet of the Vampires. But that's to quote Joe Dante. And they have like a little 3 or 4 minute interview with him about this movie on the Blu-ray. I think it's from his Trailers from Hell YouTube channel or whatever. They just took that. But the actual antagonists of the film, they're parasites, and they want to get off their planet because their sun died and everything, and the planet is basically it's a dead planet at this point, and they don't have the capacity to build any kind of ships or anything to get off the planet. They can inhabit dead bodies, but they want to inhabit living bodies, and the people that they inhabit, like, they have to kind of give themselves willingly and everything. So they're not really vampires, but Planet of the Vampires sounds cool, and it kind of works as space vampires. So they want to get off the planet, and they're trying to use these vessels to do it. It has a pretty high body count and everything. The gore, quote unquote gore, it's definitely that vibrant red, paint for blood, type of thing, which looks great. It's awesome. I have no beef with it whatsoever. It fits everything. There's definitely an eeriness, to the movie and whatnot. The fight scenes are definitely a little cheesy. Again, I say that in the most loving way, but it is definitely like, all the fighters in this come from the James T. Kirk School of Martial Arts, which usually involves a lot of flipping people over. It usually involves a little bit of a jump, midair jump kick to the stomach, or maybe a punch to the gut. And then as the person's bent over, the double hammer fist, to the back. God, I love that move. That move is amazing. So it is definitely of its time. The acting is of its time. And honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. But like, also of its time is its use of miniatures. Everything in this movie is practical. The miniatures look really cool. They sometimes a little bit in the space, like they're very static when they're in space, but there is a really cool scene of the main ship landing on the planet. And it took me a second to realize what was so cool about it is they were shooting it underwater. And that was kind of what gave the thruster effect this really cool, lit up, bubbly look. It's so awesome. But when I realized they filmed it underwater, I was like, that's fucking genius. It's so, and even some of the bubbles rising up give it this air of eeriness, and the planet, this alien vibe to it. And it's just so much of it. I can just see, people working on Alien, growing up with this movie 20 years prior and being like, learning from how they did this movie and like, let's do our version of it. And it really is required viewing, I would say, as an Alien fan. And honestly, it can kind of sit with, with Life Force as well, next to Life Force. Obviously, that's a much more horny version of this film, but especially... So there's 2 twist endings to this movie, to Planet of the Vampires, that are really cool. It's like sort of a double twist at the end. I don't want to give the final twist away because I was actually really impressed by that. But the first twist is, they're about to make it off and people do get infested and everything. And so it's almost kind of like the good guys don't really win, but they kind of do because they can't make their way back home and infest their planet. But... their home might not be what we think it is, which is pretty. And I'm not talking about the Planet of the Vampires. I'm talking about the human explorers. Their home might not be Earth. There's the really clever twist at the end, and I really, really fucking dug it. But guys and gals, this was worth the wait for me. It did take me a few months to get to it after seeing it on that documentary Memory. But I'm so glad I finally got around to watch it. I am in such a ravenous 60s mood now. I just ordered the 4K of Danger Diabolique, which Mario Bava also directed. Obviously, he directed like Bay of Blood, Black Sabbath, Black Sunday. He's a... Everyone knows him. I'm just not as well versed in him, and now I want to be. So, Danger Diabolique is going to be my next viewing, and maybe I'll do a mini review on that one. But after watching this, I was just so excited to talk about it. I mentioned it briefly on Wrap Up After Dark. This will drop afterward. So if you listen to Wrap Up After Dark on our Patreon page, then you heard me talk about this. But I was just like, you know what? I'm actually going to do a mini review on this because there's just so much stuff I loved about it. And, if you've never seen it, I would, I'm sure you can probably find a YouTube version or whatever out there, but I really, really say try to get a nice copy of it. Try to get the Kino Blu-ray. The colors are absolutely worth it. The costume design is just worth it. It's worth seeing this movie in the best possible, quality. Just the colors pop, and I'm just like, God, I wish people made colorful movies again. So yeah, Planet of the Vampires, 2 fucking thumbs up. Just damn, God, they don't make them like this anymore. So anyways, guys and gals, check it out. And if you like the review, leave a comment on Spotify. It goes a long way to help, boost the algorithm and everything. Or leave a comment on Instagram or Patreon or wherever you're listening to this. And really appreciate all of our supporters out there. Appreciate our Patreon supporters. And we also have a pretty big merch store if you ever get a chance. If you want to swing over by our website, www.podcastingafterdark.com. Just click on the merch tab. We got plenty of shirts you can pick up. It's all through like TeePublic and everything, but a lot of the designs I actually designed. I did the one that's reminiscent of Misfits of Science. I did the one that looks like the Night of the Comet homage. You'll know it when you see it, but I actually designed all those. I didn't design our main logo, though. But yeah, pick up a shirt if you want to support the show. And thank you guys so much for listening to my, rambling mini reviews. I appreciate it. Hope you dig them. And as always, we'll catch you on the Technicolor Art Deco side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can support the show by joining our Patreon page, picking up a t-shirt from our merch store, or leaving us a 5-star review. Follow us on Instagram at Podcasting After Dark. All links can be found on our website at www.podcastingafterdark.com. And join us next time for another cult movie or TV show review with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.